Today, the director of Texas Department of Public Safety, Steve McCraw, testified in front of the Texas State Senate regarding the school shooting in Uvalde, Texas. And what he said was unbelievable. Here's part of that testimony.
There's compelling evidence that the law enforcement response to the attack at Robb Elementary was an abject failure and antithetical to everything we've learned over the last 2 decades since the Columbine massacre. 3 minutes after the subject entered the West Building, there was a sufficient number of armed officers wearing body armor to isolate, distract, and neutralize the subject. The only thing stopping a hallway of dedicated officers from entering room 111 and 112 was the on-scene commander, who decided to place the lives of officers before the lives of children. The officers had weapons, the children had none. The officers had body armor, the children had none. The officers had training, the subject had none.
Can't imagine how those parents feel. It's every parent's nightmare, and an even worse nightmare that those who were supposed to do their job simply did not. It was also revealed today that the classroom door was not locked, as we were originally led to believe. There was nothing keeping those officers from running in and stopping the shooter. And all the while, the police outside the school were putting parents in handcuffs as they tried to rush into the school to save their children. Let's bring in Ben Bergquam, who was on site in Uvalde several times before the shooting and, of course, after the shooting on this program as well. Also, Lieutenant Steve Roger, who was a member of the FBI Joint Terror Task Force and Naval Intelligence Officer. Thank you both for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Gina.
Ben, why was there such confusion? Why is it that we find out so much of what we originally told was not true? And when are we going to hear from the voices of those who were supposed to be responsible for these children?
Well, that's really the question. I mean, it's what we all presumed when we first heard it. You know, it's what they're trained to do. Now, I'm not a law enforcement officer. I've never been trained to be a law enforcement officer, but that is the training of law enforcement officers. How to deal with active shooters is to neutralize the shooter. We all have heard that, especially with all of the school shootings that have gone on for so long. And that was the question. Why didn't they go in? And they laid it out so perfectly right there. They're trained, they're equipped, they're armed, they're protected, and all of these children weren't. The only thing that I can think, one of the things that really frustrates me is the fact that Pete Arredondo, the police chief of the school district, basically just went into hiding, took his position on the city council, and has basically said nothing about it. He's going to have to live with that for the rest of his life. The parents are rightfully outraged. There's no answer that will ever satisfy the hole that is left in their families. But it's definitely, it's beyond a tragedy. The only thing I can say, though, is after all of the number of lockdowns in the schools, they had 48 lockdowns in those schools the year before because of illegal alien bailouts. The only devil's advocate thing I can say is that was how they were perceiving it, that this guy was just shooting at them, trying to keep them back. And if they knew that children were being shot and killed in that classroom, then this police chief needs to be put in prison or worse.
Steve, I want to give you a chance to comment on this because you have been trained in all of the above. And I just want to hear your thoughts. Is there a plausible explanation, some sort of training somewhere that says you prioritize the life of officers before the lives of children? Is there any explanation for what we now know happened?
Absolutely none. As Ben mentioned before, we're trained to go into the situation, not to run away from it. And let me say this. All of us in law enforcement who watched this unfold knew from day one, from 1 minute into this, that this was an epic failure on the part of leadership. The police officers on the ground were in a tough situation. They know that if they're ordered to do something, they have to do it or risk the possibility of endangering someone else. Maybe they felt the incident commander knew something they didn't know, but I've got to tell you, it's at his doorstep, no one else's. It was an epic failure in communication, an epic failure in execution, an epic failure in tactical movements, and let me add this, to add insult to injury, an epic failure in providing the public, especially the parents, with accurate information. They just compounded the problem. They never had answers. They had to figure it out as they moved along, but now we have the truth.